Hello again, everybody, and welcome to number five, Drawing on Shakespeare, with me, Gary Andrews of Gary Scribbling Off the Internets, and
me, Austin Tichenor from the Reduced Shakespeare Company. And yes, who knew? Number 5, despite popular demand, we come back time after time to talk about how we draw on Shakespeare. And we have another guest this week, Gary. And not only is this man a national treasure, not only has he appeared at the National Theatre and in the West End and in television and film, not only has he won an Olivier-award and been nominated for several others, he is also, perhaps his proudest claim to fame, a member of the Reduced Shakespeare Company by marriage. Mr. Adrian Scarborough, how are you, sir? Can you join us? Are you there?
Yay.
Yes, I can. Hello. How lovely. What a splendid introduction. Thank you very much.
When we
by marriage. Do you have lots of those, though?
We do. There's not that many that we brag about quite so publicly. But yes, Adrian's wife, Rose, the former Rose Blackshaw, was our deputy stage manager when we performed at the Arts Theatre in 1992 and 3. So that's how we met. And in fact, and my wife was back in Chicago at Second City, and Rose's husband, you, Adrian, were on tour
with Britain. The Royal Exchange was a comedy of errors, I think I did, with the Royal Exchange, and a funny play called Little Murders by Jules Pfeiffer.
Who did you play in Comedy of Errors?
So I played Dromio of Syracuse.
Brilliant.
That's the main one.
I think I've got that right.
That's the one who does the whole thing about the world.
That's the one who does it, yes. Oh, it's a lot of fun to play.
Yeah.
And was brilliant because it was all in the round. And on tour, they have a sort of replica of the ground floor of the theatre, which means that they can kind of put it up anywhere. So we'd often go to places that didn't have theatres, and we'd just put it up in sports centres and that kind of thing, and school halls. It was just such a wonderful, fun way to sort of kind of kick off a career. It was brilliant, and I'm still in touch with lots and lots of the actors in it. Yeah.
What sort of period was it set in when you did that one, Adrian? What was it?
It was all set very, very modern day.
Right.
And I think, if I remember rightly, Frank Sinatra numbers, all of the music, and I've Got You Under My Skin.
Right. So what was your costume? I'm doing a little sketch at the moment, and I might try and sort of create.
Very lovely. So I wore these rather bizarre check trousers, and a rather awful and shoddy shirt and jacket. It was just a sort of, it was quite a loud check.
Right. Was the jacket check as well as the trousers? Was it?
Yes, I think so. Yes.
All right.
A lot of theatrical productions of Shakespeare tend to dress people playing comedy characters in large check. But I felt for the actor playing Dromio of Ephesus, because Nick Murchie, his name was, very brilliant audio artist, and he had to dye his hair ginger
to match you.
So I got away with it. He also had some padding, and whenever he took his costume off, I had cowboy boots as well. We had these ludicrous sort of cowboy boots. Whenever he took his costume off, he looked like a turkey because he was so stick thin, and he'd been given this padding to make him look a bit beefier up, a bit like me. And he sort of strutted about in it like some ludicrous turkey. Yeah, it was great.
Was that one of your first Shakespeare roles, or had you done Shakespeare in drama school?
I had done Shakespeare at drama school. We did a production of As You Like It, which I remember being very, very brilliant, which was set in the 1920s and rather wonderful. And I played Touchstone, which is just such a gift.
Wonderful. He's come up a couple of times in our conversations. It's one. I don't know about you. It's one of those fools. I think we've had this conversation that played by the right person is really funny, and played by the wrong person is absolutely deadly.
Well, it's incomprehensible babble quite a lot.
Yes.
Trying to make it work with a modern day audience, I think, is incredibly difficult. Particularly those. Well, and there's Act 5 where he does the whole. He runs through this list of jousting, fighting terms.
Oh, he does. Yeah.
And none of them, of course, are funny anymore.
What was? And you said it was 20s. So what glorious outfit were you in for that one? Tell me it was a loud check again. No, what was it?
It was a loud check suit. Yeah. I had with quite loud braces, and I had a hat with a sort of peak that went up at the front and did a kind of over the top job, a bit like sort of like a bullfighter.
Oh right, okay.
I'm just playing with some drawings here.
No, not at all. Well, and it's funny because you have been gracious enough to do several episodes of my podcast, and in one of them, it was called "Playing the Fool" because you literally played the fool at the National Theatre opposite Simon Russell Beale's Lear, and you use that exact same term in describing the fool, is that he spouts incomprehensible babble. And that was one of the challenges. I remember you were reluctant to take the role of the fool.
That's very true. I always felt that in the productions I'd seen of it, I'd always sort of thought it's only half a part, which indeed it is, because he's dead by the interval. Unless a director chooses to take him on as a metaphor. I saw one production where they had him sitting in a tree for the whole of the second half, and I really felt for him.
Oh, yes.
And then they hanged him at the end.
Yeah.
Before Lear gets brought in and taken off. And I don't know why. It was brilliant. So essentially the lights came up and he was sort of hanging by his neck after hiding in the tree.
They literally took my poor fool is hanged. My poor fool is hanged. They took it literally. And
took it quite literally.
Did it then.
Yeah.
Well, that's horrible for the actor too, because I remember you spent your second act, I think, drinking wine and playing the guitar up in one of the upper dressing rooms.
I did. It was ghastly. Truly grim. I did a terrible thing as well with the actor who was playing Cornwall, where we heard that in Camden there was a gin festival going on at a particular pub. And I said to Michael, I wonder if I could get to this pub and back in the second half on my bicycle, because I cycle everywhere in London. And I said, I reckon I could probably do it and get a gin in. And he said, if I do it on the tube, we could sort of have a race to see whether we could do it or not. So we didn't tell anybody we were going. It was a beautiful Saturday afternoon. And Bealey, God bless him, decided that he could only give one Lear a day. So he was not going to do two because it was just too much. And I totally get that. 4 hours of Lear is enough without being 8 hours. So we'd only ever do one performance a day, which was great. So you never had that horrible sort of double where you have your matinee and then your evening show and 20 minutes in between to wolf some food down. Anyway, so I sneak out of stage door very quietly and get my bicycle, and I cycled to Camden Town, to this pub in Camden Town, in 22 and a half minutes, which from the South Bank is pretty good going. It was pretty empty. There wasn't a lot of traffic about, and I beat him, by like 10 minutes. We downed a gin and then headed back and made it back for the curtain call with acres of time to spare. If I'd been knocked off my bike, it would have been pretty.
Or if the tube had sort of gone down or something.
Well, exactly, yes. He got stuck sort of halfway between Charing Cross and the Square.
That story needs a different third act, but it's fabulous.
It's amazing.
It's not one I used to tell very often, but it's so far away now that I can. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
that's right. And you're so distinguished and wizened now. You would never, ever, ever try something similar.
No. Well, my legs don't go that fast anymore.
Is Shakespeare at all one of the reasons you went into acting at all, or is Shakespeare something that you went, oh God, if I go into acting, I might have to do some Shakespeare at some point?
No, my mother, God bless her, used to read it to us.
Oh wow!
And she was an extraordinary woman, and she loved poetry, so she would read a lot of poetry to us. Silly verse as well as, serious. Wordsworth was not uncommon. And I think she grew up at a time where you had to do that at school quite a lot, and you would learn by rote. But she also worked for a publisher's and a printer. And so she had access to an awful lot of books as a young girl. And she would readily admit that she used to sort of borrow them on the sly and take them home and look after them very, very carefully. But she would read them and then, take them back in the following day. And she read an awful lot of poetry. And she just adored plays. She loved going to the theatre. And she would sit us on her knee and she would read plays to us, yeah. But I remember her reading Macbeth. And we literally sat at the kitchen table and read it from cover to cover, the whole thing. She took me through the whole play. Because I was going to play young Macduff's son, who gets murdered when the murderers come and visit Lady Macduff.
You killed me, mother.
That's right. Run away, I pray you. I think that's the only line he has. And the murderer says, "What, you egg?" or something.
Yeah.
So she took me through the whole play just because she thought it was very, very important that I understood it. And I just remember, I can remember vast swathes of Macbeth anyway, but mostly because of her. She did the same with Midsummer Night's Dream. Well, anytime we went to the theatre to see a Shakespeare play that we didn't know or hadn't ever heard of, she would, take us through the greatest hits before we went, which was just such a treat.
That's so amazing. If your first experience with Shakespeare can't be seeing him performed live, surely the second best must be him read to you by your mother.
Well, and by somebody who got really, really excited and really, really thrilled about it. So there was no sort of sitting in a dull classroom with a teacher who didn't particularly inspire, slogging round the room, doing a line each or something like that.
Oh.
Yeah. And I love that your story
and played them all rather well.
I bet she did. Well, and I love that your story has now been immortalized by Gary as we've been talking.
Oh,
that's so beautiful.
Although I'd already started when you said she sat you on her knee. I had her reading it to you in bed. So
well, she used to do that too.
Oh, well, there we go.
She was she was just a great one for literature, really. But she believed wholeheartedly in bedtime stories. You simply could not go to bed.
Yeah.
So was she thrilled when you became an actor?
She was rather thrilled when I became an actor, for lots of reasons, partly because there was nothing else I could do. But it took me a long time to actually start to read for myself, partly because she was so damn good.
Mm.
And of course, trying to recreate that for yourself, I found that really, really hard, and it was a bit of a slog, particularly with, great tomes and classical texts.
Yeah.
So it took me a long time, really. I was all right.
How do you think you cracked it? Or do you feel like you have?
Well, sometimes I really don't think I have. It depends what I pick up.
I suppose that's the great thing, isn't it, about Shakespeare? There's always another, no matter how many times you do it, you're always finding out new things each time you do a show.
Yes.
I mean, do the same show, repeating it. That's how many. What's the show you've been in? Have you done? I'm assuming you must have done some of them more than once.
No, I don't think I have.
You're not. That's an interesting one. Yeah, because I was going to say if you've ever done one twice, what was the difference? You know, how was the contrasting of doing the two? But
yeah, I don't think I ever have. I mean, I've done a lot more comedies than I have anything else.
Yeah.
I've only done I did Henry IV 1 and 2, but I haven't done many histories at all.
Yeah.
Not at all.
You did. I saw. You know, and this is the answer to a question Reed Martin asked us, Gary, about what was one of the funniest moments we've ever seen on stage.
Oh yes,
I tell
you, last time.
Adrian was in one of them. It was Henry IV Part 2 at the National. You were doubling as Poins and Justice Silence.
Yes,
Justice Silence, and you played Justice Silence as this incredibly old, doddering, slow-moving figure, and Sir John Wood was Justice Shallow.
Yes,
and Michael Gambon was Falstaff.
I saw it.
So
yes.
two titans of the English theater, and you, and Justice Silence's entrance. It's still going on. His entrance. He was just. He took all this stuff. He was just doing this.
It's like Julie Walters' Two Soups.
It went on for 7 minutes.
Was, right?
And,
yeah.
And you've got Gambon and Sir John Wood just standing there, throwing you focus. And I thought, it's such a great bit. It's wonderful of them to give you that moment. It was both beautifully hysterical and a wonderful display of ensemble work from legends, from acting legends.
Indeed. It said a lot about the generosity of John Wood as well. And and the cleverness of John, because the opening line to that scene is Justice Shallow says, "Come on, come on, come on." And rather than just kind of go, "Come on, come on, come on," he just he started out by sort of going, "Come on." And then there was a pause while Silence sort of made his way down this rather tentative down this slope. And then he got a bit more frustrated and a bit crosser and just went, "Come on." And then at the end, the final "come on" was like, "Come on." He just lost it completely. But it was just I just thought it was genius to kind of use the three phrases in such a brilliantly creative and funny way.
And was that, okay, here's the question. Whose idea? I mean, I know these things develop in rehearsal, but can you remember how that came about as a moment?
That is pure John Wood.
That was John. Brilliant.
Oh, yeah.
But you decided that you were going to be that old and be that slow.
I didn't want. What I'd said to Nick Heitner was that if I was going to do the double, it was really, really important that people didn't know it was me playing playing Silence. So whatever we did, I either had to have a wig, I had to be, really heavily made up. And we just kind of thought, well, old is the best way to go. Because, of course, he doesn't say anything really very much at all. And then he gets drunk and starts singing. And eventually falls flat on his face.
It was brilliant. It
was great fun. Very good.
Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
And I love the conception of the fool when you did play him, that he wasn't a figure in cap and bells. He was an old mate of King
with a funny
or checksmith, right?
Yeah.
I guess he was in a check suit with a funny.
But yeah, the conception was, no, he's an old friend. And it's yes, he's the fool. That might be his job title, but mostly he's the longest serving colleague of Lear, and that's why he's able to say the things to Lear that he's able to say. Sure. And it's the beginning of Lear's descent when he does that surprisingly violent, I guess, murder of the fool.
Yes.
Spoilers.
That was a given. They had that idea. I went out with Sam
Mendes, the director.
Mendes, yeah, and we had a long conversation about it, and I kind of went, I've always wanted the Fool just literally to kind of go, I'm enough of this. I'm actually going.
Mm.
Because Shakespeare doesn't actually say what happens to him or give him any lines out of that final scene. I just thought it would be great to kind of go, this is the point at which he exits. This is the point at which his world kind of falls apart and collapses in on itself. And it would be better to actually make the choice to go. And Sam listened very, very patiently and then just kind of said, or we could bludgeon him to death in a bath.
Okay, Sam.
Or we could do that, Sam.
Oh, fine, yes, good idea. Why not?
And thus is the stuff of great artistic collaborations.
But, I mean, I remember one of the other ones I saw you in was the Tempest with Ian McDermott at the Almeida with all that water.
That fantastic water, yeah, because they were tearing down the Almeida.
That was one of those ones. I seem to remember a moment where you fell in.
I did go in.
Disappeared completely, and I nearly soiled myself at that moment. It was one of those moments because it was so unexpected. You were sort of going along, and then just suddenly just disappeared. And I'm not a person that when I'm at the theatre make a lot of out loud noises. I laugh. I'm the world's worst audience. I'm one of these people that sits there going, "That's really funny," and I'll be useless. But it literally is one of those ones that it was just one of those moments that killed me. And again,
who are you playing?
Trinculo.
Trinculo, of course.
Trinculo? Oh, very good.
And you weren't. The trousers might have been checked. Oh no, they were striped, I think.
They were check trousers.
They were, yes.
Yeah. And two-tone brogues.
Yes, that's right.
It's funny, Gary. You talk about being a bad audience member, going, "Oh yeah, that's very funny." That's how we describe the differences between American audiences and British audiences.
Yes.
Which is that American audiences laugh uproariously and British audiences smile uproariously.
We internalize all our humor. And at the end go, that was amazing. That was amazing.
Bravo.
Loved every moment.
That was the funniest thing. That was the funniest thing I've ever seen. Well, tell your face.
Yes. I don't want to laugh out loud in case I missed something. That's the thing. I'm sort of, what did they say? I don't know. I couldn't hear. I'm like, hanging on to everything. But
you get frustrated and slightly annoyed by people who make far too much noise in the theatre if you're sitting close to them?
I bloody shush! Stop it!
Yes, and those people. Those people
enjoying yourself so loudly.
Are there Shakespeare roles you are dying to tackle, Abe?
I always wanted to do Richard III. And it's sort of getting a bit late now, I think.
McKellen did it much older than you.
That's very true, actually. Yes. Yes.
Okay, it's not a documentary. It's not a documentary. It's a play. You can do it whatever age.
But I always liked the idea of them being children.
Yeah.
They kind of were.
Well, he was 34 or something when he died, wasn't he? I think he was. Yeah.
Yes. And you kind of go. They were boys essentially, all sort of stamping their feet. But yes, I would love. I would still love to do Richard III. I think that would be great. Yeah, I don't suppose.
Well, and you'd get every laugh possible out of your Richard III, and who should be funny.
I would be absolutely and utterly savage.
Yes. Interesting, because I saw he's come up a couple of times in conversation. I saw Simon Russell Beale's one when he did it with the RSC.
Yeah.
And he managed to do that thing of making it incredibly funny one moment and absolutely terrifying the next like that.
True chilling.
It was quite fascinating, and I think it was when it was doing the funny bits that made the chilling bits more chilling. And I think that's the trick, isn't it, with those sort of parts, is humanizing the monster. And
that's interesting. If you were to play that part or in any of the other parts that you played, would you say to Bealey, I'm doing Richard III? Any notes? Any thoughts?
Yes, any clues, please?
Any tips?
Without a shadow of a doubt. Yes, I would. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. A lot of people about playing the Fool.
Yeah.
Rhys Ifans
was that helpful?
Rhys Ifans and I had a long conversation about it because he did his with Glenda Jackson, of course, at the Old Vic.
Oh yes,
right.
Which was fascinating. And he just sort of said that Glenda led the way. So a lot of his choices were, you know, essentially just led by whatever Glenda was doing and wanted to do.
So talking about creating characters then, which is, you know, what we're doing today. So when you're doing a show, I mean, this is a stupid question, but I'm going to ask it anyway, because I think the answer is it's different every time. But do you go into the shows with any kind of ideas about where you think you want to go with the character, or is it part of the choice in the first place, or how does it work with you? I mean, I guess you get cast by people for specific, because of a skill set that you have anyway as an actor and as a person. I mean,
I think generally speaking, most people do, and I think I've always sort of described it as a huge mixing bowl in my head, which essentially I just continually lob things into. and some of them can be helpful and some of them can be not helpful, and you mix them all together and see what you get and what comes out. And then but the lovely thing about my mixing bowl is that you can take things out just as easily as you can plop them in. So even when you've mixed them all up together, you're still capable of actually withdrawing an ingredient and getting shot of it later on. I mean, Leah was an interesting case in point, in that Sam's very good. He does a lot of he doesn't do improvisation, but essentially what he does is he made a huge carpet circle in rehearsal room 1 at the National, and we all took our shoes and socks off and sat round the outside of this huge carpet circle, and then scene by scene we literally just went through the play. So if you were in that scene, you stood up and you kind of improvised it. And then you improvised it again, and we did it sort of 3 or 4 times and saw what good came out of it, and essentially what things that you could kind of draw out of it as good ingredients and lob in your mixing bowl. And that's kind of, I mean, I love working like that, just because the most extraordinary things kind of come up.
Happy accidents.
Loads of happy accidents. I mean, I knew that I wanted him to be, he is a good entertainer. Otherwise, he wouldn't have stayed there as long as he has. And I think all of the guys love him. So when they all come back from hunting, they came in with a stag on a stick, a life-size, you know, dead stag. And that's how the whole scene started. And then I came in, I wanted something that I could put all my comedy gear in. I like the idea of him having props.
Right.
And I was in town in Berkhamsted where we live, and I saw this old lady with this fantastic Czech shopping trolley on wheels.
There's a theme.
There's a theme. It's the Czech again. And I thought that it was quite a comedic thing to have. But also I had to carry instruments in it. So I was playing the ukulele, and at some point I thought, I've got to get rid of this damn ukulele, otherwise I'm going to have it strapped to me for the entire scene. And they made a front pocket on this thing, which I could sort of stuff my ukulele in, and the neck stuck out of it. And I just thought it just looked great. It just looked funny and quite fun. And then I'd also, Bowie was, came up again and again and again at that particular period in time for me. And I was listening to a lot of it. And I saw this photograph of him wearing these blue glasses, and I thought they looked really cool. So I thought a pair of blue glasses might be fun, which is ultimately what we ended up with. And I went in, I remember going in, and my daughter had been doing this remarkable thing where she would sort of use her body, her chest and her legs as a sort of percussive beat. And she would sort of alternate that with tables and stuff. And she would sing this brilliant song, which was very rhythmic. And I thought, that would be fantastic. Something along those lines would be really, really good. If you could sort of establish a kind of kind of "We Will Rock You" or something like that, for maybe some of the poetry or some of the rhymes within it or something like that. So I thought that would just be a fun thing to play with, which indeed we ended up doing. And it was very, I mean, the thing about Sam is that he's just wonderfully and incredibly playful. And he is dogged about getting to the heart and the truth of a scene if he possibly can. He just will not let it go unless he feels that he's got the soul and the heart of it, you know, in the characters' heads and on stage being shown. So
I love all of that, and it also says that Sam trusts his actors to sort of, you know, get in the circle and start doing it, and he follows the actors' instincts.
I think that's what I really like, is that the approaches that you will find in a Sam Mendes rehearsal room are all totally disparate. Yeah. And all completely different. And yet somehow along the way, he kind of honors everybody's approach and manages to draw them all together into one very cohesive whole. And that is nothing short of a miracle, really. I mean, that is, especially with a play like Lear.
Yeah. It really is. Actors, cats, herding. Yeah,
quite.
So another character, another sort of dangerous question. I don't know if it is. No, of course it isn't. Out of all the Shakespeare roles you played, which was the one that you found the hardest to get a hook on? The one that took you the longest maybe to find what you wanted with? Or is there one that you feel, is there one you even feel you didn't get to? You know what I mean?
I played Hamlet at the Coventry Belgrade Theatre. It's best left there. But Simon Usher directed it, and Simon's he's an extraordinary director, and his insights into the text are incredible, really incredible, jaw-dropping at times, and very oxygenating to be around. But I found it, well, we had to do it very, very quickly. I think we had 3.5 weeks to put it on, and it is huge. Yeah. And I just found myself, a lot of it became a learning exercise, essentially. I would go home every night at sort of 5:30, wolf something down, and then I would spend another sort of 3 hours that evening just getting it into my head and going at it. I tried to learn the soliloquies before I got in there, and I think I did. But Simon also, I kept saying to him, "You've got to cut it, and he wouldn't.
He was really
doing everything. I mean, I'm really, really glad as well, because How All Occasions Do Inform Against Me and Spur My Dull Revenge is so often cut out. And it's such an important pivot moment in the play for Hamlet. Yeah. Absolutely crucial to have it in. And it was a real pleasure and a treat to do it. But I'm not royal. Try as I might, I wanted to play him as a very difficult boy, partly because I am frequently cast as a light comedian. And so it's lovely every now and again when one gets the opportunity to just kind of play against that and not be that person. So I didn't want him to be erudite and funny. I wanted him to be bloody difficult and actually quite an annoying boy.
It is, isn't it?
It's been so fun to see.
Which is great because he is. Sorry.
No, it's okay. I interrupted.
It all falls apart when you get to Sweet Prince. Good night, Sweet Prince, and Flight of Angels, sing thee to thy rest, because he's not been sweet.
Yeah.
And people are so happy that he's dead now. Can we go now?
God for that. Somebody put him out of his misery.
I was going to say, it's been so much fun to see you recently in roles where you have the upper status. The Madness of King George with Mark Gatiss, from Nottingham, and a
I
very
caught up with that when
very
it was on
British.
TV the other day, which was, I was
brilliant.
so glad I got to see it, because I remember when it was on, I couldn't get there, and I was gutted I didn't get to see it. But
No, it was great.
it was so good.
And is it a very English or a very British scandal with Hugh Grant and Tom Wishaw?
A very British scandal, yeah.
Yeah, that was great.
Remember, is it English or is it British? No, I think it's English.
I think it's English.
Yeah, I think it's English. Yeah.
Yes, because it's not a Scottish.
It's not Welsh.
Scandal. It's not Welsh. No, it's English. No, but it's been fun to see you take higher status roles when you frequently are playing lower status comedians. My other question was, do you, because you're frequently in long runs, do you find that there's one sort of learning process in the rehearsal, and then there's another learning process as you begin to do 7-8 performances a week?
Yes. I mean, I have to say that was the other thing with Hamlet, was that we only did it for 4 weeks. And for the final 2 of those weeks, I was getting on the train at about 6 o'clock in the morning from Coventry, having done Hamlet the night before, going down to the National Theatre to rehearse Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are Dead, with Tom Stoppard, Simon Russell Beale and Francis Matthews in rehearsal room 1. And then about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I'd get back on the train, go back to Coventry and do Hamlet in the evening. And it was just absurd and really, in retrospect, utterly stupid. But it kind of cut the experience short as well, because I never felt like it really developed after the first couple of weeks. Whereas, of course, when you were, like I did, we did the Robert Lepage Midsummer Night's Dream at the National Mudsummer Night's Dream, as it was known, and because it was all set in this mud. And
who were you?
I gave my flute the bellows mender.
Brilliant.
So he gets to play Thisbe. He gets to put the frock on, which is great fun. And,
get the frock out of here.
That was where they had the contortionist Puck doing the ears of the donkey with their feet, wasn't it?
That's right. Angela Laurie.
What was it? Tim Spall playing?
Tim Spall playing bottom. Yeah. She had a terrible accident and had to retire from the show because she put her hand again on the back of the Olivier. There are these huge dock doors which used to fly out very dramatically, reveal this sort of great gold behind. And she was doing a warm-up on stage one night, and she got her hand against it, and somebody backstage pushed the button, and it went out and took her thumb with it.
Ow.
Yeah, and she was a contortionist. That was her job. She did stuff with Cirque du Soleil, and she was just extraordinary. And of course, the balance that she required from her thumb to kind of do what she did sort of meant that she had to completely relearn how to be the brilliant contortionist that she was. But it was breathtaking. Some of it was just extraordinary. When Oberon says, "I'll put a girdle," but Puck says, "I'll put a girdle around the earth," Lepage had to scuttle up this rope, and Oberon was at the bottom, and he would spin this rope. It was, 30 feet long, and she would be in the middle of it, spinning round and round, and then they projected a globe onto her, which as she was going round and round and round, it was just extraordinary. You firmly believed that this fairy was essentially just sort of whizzing round and round the world. Times without, it was glorious, breathtaking, and bloody cold. And dirty and horrible. But it was quite something to do.
Do you have a favorite Shakespeare role that you have played?
I loved Trinculo just because it's just so silly.
It is.
It's just so gloriously silly.
It's wonderfully self-contained, isn't it? It's basically the three of them, separate from everybody else for most of the play until the very end. And you've almost got this little. I played Caliban once, and we had that same thing. We rehearsed separately to everybody else, and we only met them like when we sort of all came together at the end.
Yeah, I mean, there are people that you simply don't get to meet in the course of the play at all until that final scene. But I loved that. Partly because the set was just extraordinary. Ian McDermott was just completely brilliant. I love working with Jonathan Kent. And we did it all over. It was all over Christmas, right? I think up to the end of February. And at the Almeida, in that configuration, there was no stage left wing. There was just this little room at the back, but you couldn't get out of it to get round to the other side. So once you exited stage left, you had to re-enter stage left. There was no other way, and you were stuck there until you did. And we had the exit stage left quite early on in proceedings, and there then ensued this like 40-minute gap where we just stayed in this room. I was soaked to the skin because I'd just been pushed in the pool, and they used to leave us these flasks and little supper trays. And I remember on February the 14th, we had little chocolate hearts on a plate. And they used to do just lovely, lovely little things, mince pies at Christmas and brandy butter, that kind of thing. It was just delightful.
Well, and I would wish I could have seen your Trinculo, because, so frequently that section of the play can be just death. When Trinculo and Stefano are not in the hands of gifted comic actors, that can be really trying.
That speech as well, here's neither bush nor shrub to bear off any weather at all, and another storm brewing, where he finds Caliban and thinks he's a fish. It's just
the whole thing with the gabardine and the
yes. Misery acquaints a man with strange bedfellows.
Well, and you've got, I think, two of my favorite lines in the canon back when you played Thisbe. Asleep, my love? Dead, my
dove?
Dead, my
dove? Let me not play a woman, I have a beard coming. That's always a good one as well.
I love that.
Yes, indeed. Yes.
I love the delivery where it's, let me not play a woman, I have a beard. Coming.
I've always wanted, when I get old and I can't remember it anymore, I'd love to play Snug the Joiner. Because to play the lion as a sort of 93-year-old man, I think would just be wonderful fun.
Wouldn't it just?
Yes.
Roar!
Yes, exactly. Quite.
With a part written.
Has this locked
written? I pray you, if it be, give it me, for I am slow of study.
It's beautiful, isn't it?
It's so moving, beautiful.
I'm sorry.
Your feet in a bowl of warm water. I imagined you having a bowl of warm water in the wings at the Almeida.
Yeah, that's exactly what we did have. Yes, and little hot water bottles.
Yes, brilliant.
Oh, how wonderful! Yes, exactly like that.
Some of the most enjoyable times I've ever spent, Adrian, have been in a pub with you talking about theater. So this. I'm drinking tea because it's early here in the States.
But nothing. I feel left out.
So Harry.
I just mime it. There we go.
There we go. This has been a lovely treat.
It has.
Oh, it's been so nice. I'm sorry I've waffled on.
You're allowed to waffle.
Anything.
That's what we do.